Hello, welcome to Champagne Channeling. I am so excited to introduce you to one of my friends and an astrological leader in the community, Vika Bradford. Welcome, Vika.
Thank you so much for having me.
So Vika and I met, I want to say it's almost been a year ago on Instagram, but my timelines kind of get warped a bit. Does that sound right to you?
It sounds right. It could be a little longer, but it feels close to that.
Yeah, and you're in Canada, right?
Hmm.
Yes.
Yeah.
And where are you at?
Currently I'm near Toronto right now.
Perfect. I was so drawn to you by your profile. So Vika does a lot of amazing work with astrology, but one thing that she did that I had never heard of is she works with Lilith. And Vika is like a stunning, beautiful, very sensual, very sexual woman, and your post always deeply intrigued me. And you had to explain what Lilith was, and then of course we dove into that in our reading. But do you mind just talking, like starting out with Lilith, because that's what drew me to you, is that energy.
Yeah. It would be my honor to talk about Lilith because she's such a guiding force in my life. Um, So just like a backstory for Lilith for me was she was always there. My stepdad, he would always talk about Lilith. He likes to provoke very religious people, and I have no qualms against anyone believing anything. But he's the type of person that really is a provoker. So he would always, when I was younger, talk to very religious people about like, what about Lilith? And Lilith isn't commonly talked about, so most highly religious people that wasn't in their vocabulary. So she was always there, and I was always fascinated by her energy. But it didn't click till I got into astrology that she was like this powerhouse. So Lilith's story essentially boils down to her being the first wife of Adam. God created them of equal essence, right? They're the same, whereas Eve was created of Adam, right? So we have to understand that dichotomy first. Is she is made of the exact same thing as Adam. They're equal, and Adam essentially believes she's subservient and she should bow to him. And Eve's like, or sorry, Lilith, not Eve. Lilith is like, no, we're made of the same thing. Like, we're equal. And essentially, she ends up having to leave because of this imbalance in the partnership, and not wanting to bow to another person. And she has to go and walk on her own, walk her own path. So first I like to lead with like, that's the main thing about Lilith. She has to go out by herself. If we just picture a wild woman for a moment in that vision of the Garden of Eden, she has nothing. She is alone. She has to figure out all her faculties on her own, and that's in itself is a very intense energy, right? So she goes out. She wanders into, say, a forest or whatever we want to envision it as, and she meets all these quote unquote demons. And I like to reference that when the religious or patriarchal energies say demons, I want to remind you that what is a demon? Is it not maybe subconscious? Is it not just someone they deem not within their wheelhouse or acceptable? So let's remember that for a second. And she, in the story, goes and has all these, children by these demons. She's the mother of demons, quote unquote. And she's having the time of her life, having all the sex of her life. She's enjoying herself. She's balanced. She's equal to these quote unquote demons. And God comes along and he's like, listen, Lilith, you got to go back to Adam, or I'm going to make all your children mortal and they're all going to die before your eyes. And she's like, got to choose at this point, right? Her freedom, her sovereignty over, not necessarily over her children, but over like the energy of keeping them forever, keeping them immortal. And she says, no, she says, I'm staying in my freedom. I'm staying in, like this place that I've chosen and fought for and walked my path to get here. And God goes through with it, and her children, become mortal and die before her eyes. And all the while she has to grieve and honor herself and her choices, and the fact that standing in her truth of being a balanced being, balance of the masculine and the divine feminine. I really love looking at Lilith as that balancing point. is really what her story boils down to, is having to walk alone, having to stand firm in your sovereignty, having to, be ridiculed, be the provoker, be the one that the world says is wrong, the one that the world says should, get in line, right? And how many of us feel like the world says that to us, and there's an area in your life where you're like, I can't get in line, right? And that is like Lilith in a nutshell.
Yeah, wow. It's just so many things are coming up for me in my mind, especially now that we know that my Lilith is in Aquarius.
Yeah.
I'm downloading even more as you speak, and just it's almost like she knew her own divine path had to be chosen over anything else, and then there comes the human experience of pain and joy.
Yes, exactly. Yeah, exactly. It's like that feeling that I'm sure a lot of the listeners know, and you know your path, and it's not the easy path, but the other path isn't easy either, right? But you just have to pick that gut knowing of where you're going is right for you, even if it comes with loneliness or pain or fear or ridicule, like all these things, and you still choose that because it's your moral compass.
Mm-hmm. So much shame is around this topic, especially for women.
Yeah.
And so there's so much more to it. But first, I think I jumped ahead because I just got so excited. But what got you into astrology? Like, how are you here? What was your journey?
Yeah. So, okay. So, like, fast forwarding back to being very young, my mom was always very supportive of this kind of stuff. She's witchy in her own way. And she was always buying me, tarot cards and oracle decks and astrology books and spell books. But then, I hit puberty, and it wasn't cool in that time to be into this sort of stuff. So I tossed it aside, acted like I didn't have any connection to, source or whatever. You do your high school things. And I became very, very depressed. I was depressed from about the age of 12 onward through to 20. I experienced almost, leaving this world around 16. It was a really intense time for me. And that is related to my astrology particularly. And in that experience, I went through obviously a lot of pain, a lot of suffering, a lot of not wanting to be here. And then, I hit my early 20s, 2021. I started to wake up, something started to wake up within me. And around the time of me waking up, I started my Reiki practice. I started, did my Reiki. I did my crystal certification. I did this, I started looking into all these facets, reading all the self-help books, the spiritual books. And then I started dating a guy who bought me an astrology book randomly and was like, this book's going to change your life. And it was the book Astrology for the Soul by Jan Spiller. It was all about the North and South Node. And I, at that point, only knew my sun sign. And I'm reading this damn book and I'm like, who the hell has been following me around, documenting my life, like documenting my deepest pain points, and just like wrote them down. I remember being dumbfounded. And that kind of like started my learning. But then I left it on the table for a while, did my yoga training, did this, did that. And it was in, marketing my yoga training actually that I came back to astrology, because I found my first mentor who was teaching how to market and brand through astrology. And when I started working with her, I was like, hold on, like this is my soul's language. And I knew at that point that the door had been opened. It was like all the other things were the tools in my tool belt for this door. And from there, I did my mentorship with her. I did my training, and it was just like locked and loaded. Astrology is the thing. And that's how I ended up here.
Yeah. It was probably more of a remembrance, right?
And that's what I say. And most of my, students and mentees say the exact same thing. It's a remembering of a language that we've spoken for a millennia. And I think most of us do feel like that because it's like a soul remembrance.
So you mentioned I feel like you just kind of like told my life too. So with knowing your chart and reading mine, do we have similarities?
We do. It's that like we both have a high Plutonian signature. We both have a high Leo signature and a high Aquarian signature.
Oh my gosh. Yeah. Cause I mean, I very, very depressed, definitely almost left the world around 16. Didn't feel comfortable here. It was too painful. And now, I really flipped it and I'm like, well, this life is so beautiful. Like everybody like join the new wave of living in this like beautiful, luxurious experience. And you reminded me after reading my chart, like, yeah, because you did the work. Like, don't forget like the depths of hell that you went through. And I don't live that way. I don't advertise myself or my work from that wounded place, but it was nice to sit with you. And you really point out, like, you didn't get here by mistake. Like, this wasn't you weren't handed this in a silver spoon. Like, this is past lives continuing to come back, being resilient, doing the work. And I am so thankful for that, because sometimes I can be very, very hard on myself and I forget.
Yeah, I totally resonate with that, because it's the earth experience is not easy, especially when, when we are operating from our lower octaves or in our subconscious, or, we're not fully present with how much power we actually have. And we only find that through the work, right?
Yeah. So I don't know if you told me this, but like you have to have a lot of Scorpio in your chart, right?
I do. I have
Okay.
so I have like a high Plutonian signature, in the sense of Pluto's in my first house. So it's why I have to lead through this dark energy, through the shadow. And Pluto in the first house usually denotes like big depression energy when you're younger and not awake, but like a big death rebirth life. And then I do have my Mars in my 8th house as well. So like there's a lot of that Scorpio energy going on there. And then in my progressed chart as well, my progressed rising is in in Scorpio as well. And there's a bunch of asteroids up in Scorpio too, and in my 8th house. So there's a lot of that energy going on.
Yeah. And maybe correct me if I'm wrong, but like when I see somebody that's so confident with their sexuality, or even I sense that like deep pleasure, and it just makes me think of Scorpio. Is that right?
100%. 100%. Yeah.
Okay.
It's like the Taurus Scorpio axis, depending on how it gets expressed, but that's Scorpio energy, 100%.
And what about Gemini? Because I feel like Geminis can be really sexual too.
Geminis are so interesting. So my Mars is in Gemini in the 8th house. So, okay, so we've got the layer of the flirtatious Gemini, right?
Yeah.
They're just so flirtatious and unable to be locked down, right? Like Gemini's like slip through your fingers. And then you put it in the 8th house, and then you bring that Scorpio energy in. And that's very much where you're seeing a part of that with me, is like that play.
Yeah.
And Geminis, they're flirting with life.
Yep. And
that's what Geminis are doing.
I don't know an unattractive Gemini. Like Geminis care about appearance.
And I've always been highly attracted to Geminis. They've all broken my heart, but it's okay. It's just such a alive energy.
Very.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh, so interesting. So just for you guys listening, there are many, many ways to read your chart. And you could sit with an astrologist for a week and not even understand all of it. And so when you want to have a reading with an astrologist, there needs to be a purpose. Like, knowing your sun sign is really not even the tip of the iceberg. Like it's hardly anything. And the one thing that I really enjoy about Vika and what she offers is she does a past life and a life purpose reading. And that's the reading that I've had recently. And I needed it. It was the perfect time. I don't know if I could have handled it like 10 years ago, because I was still in my darkness. I was still moving through so much. But what came through was a lot of confirmation, a lot of recognition of the work, a lot of the duality or polarity or dichotomy of this life, and how it really is never going to end. Like it's just part of the soul's journey. But what I really liked, and I did butcher in last week's episode, or actually probably 2 weeks ago episode, is that I quoted you, and I did admit that I was probably wrong. So I hope people didn't like have their pen out, but I said that the north node was I am and the south node was I am not. And that is absolutely incorrect. And now looking at my notes, and I want you to take us there, is the ascendant, which we know is our rising, is the I am. And you guys all know that I named my ego Vanessa, and I associate her with my rising, and it's a Leo, and it makes such sense that like I am Vanessa sometimes. And the I am not is the descendant. And so please, like, I would love for you to help people understand those two things and how they may show up in our lives.
And I love talking about this. So I'm excited I get to show people this, because I feel like not enough people know their rising sign. Not enough people. And I'm like, that is like, if you know any sign, make it your rising.
Yes.
Right. If you don't know your birth time, I'm so sorry. That's the luck of the draw, and I'm sorry to hear it. But the rising sign sets up your entire chart, right? So without it, you don't know the experience of your life here on earth.
Yes.
So your rising being, I am, okay. It's like, this is your, not only the mask you put on when you go out into the world, it's your perception of the world. So I always describe it as the glasses you put on, the lenses, right? So like, rose-colored glasses. Your rising sign are your glasses. So rose-colored glasses, I would literally say, is a Venus energy, right? Like a Libra rising, a Taurus rising, you got rose-colored glasses on. So for instance, my rising is Libra, I got rose-colored glasses. But I have Pluto in my first house, so I have a Plutonian lens as well, okay? So I am seeing the world as these rosy, it's almost a Persephone Hades energy, okay? That's what I tap into with my rising. It's like I am seeing the world through that lens. I am that energy. I'm going to dress as that energy. That's also part of what you're picking up with the sexuality with me, is the Venus Pluto mixing together. It's very magnetic. It's dark. It's sensual, right? Your energy, you've also got your Venus in your first house. And was it just your Venus in there? Yeah.
I don't
think
recall.
it was just your
I know
Venus.
my Venus is in Leo and my ascendant is Leo. So please.
Okay. Yes.
What do
so
my
like
say?
your lens, right? Your lens when you come in, your I am energy, your perception of the world is Leo. It's the royal, it's the regal, it's almost like if you were thinking of it in a color or like a mood board, it would be the golds and the come on champagne. It would be the rich, royal, the energy of being in a castle, being in these big grand rooms, it's luxurious, it's big, it's bold, it's big patterns, it's confident. It's like, I'm just going to wear whatever I want because I'm the queen and I'm the boss. And that's the lens that you expect the world to be too, right? Is loud and boisterous and dramatic, and there all the beautiful Leo things of just being the star. It's like, those are your glasses, right? That's who you are. That's how you perceive the world. That's how you're going to show up in the world. So that's one side, is like, I am. And you feel so good in your rising sign that when you learn your rising sign, you're like, I'm going to dress like this. I'm going to feel like this. I'm going to show up like this, because it makes you feel complete, right? It's like, that's your costume. And then we go to the other side. So understanding that there are 4 angles in the chart: your rising sign, and directly across is called your descendant. So your rising is also your ascendant. And then you've got your midheaven, and then directly across is another point. So you've got your 4 angles. So, and the descendant is that direct, exact opposite to your rising sign. So for you, it's Aquarius. For me, it's Aries. And this energy, as I described to you in our chart reading, is kind of like your soulmate energy. And I don't say that as seeking outside of yourself for a minute. Yes, it is who we meet out there. Okay. Understanding your descendant is who we meet in the world, 100%. But taking it back to us for a second, it's like your inner soulmate energy. So your descendant feels like I am not, because you haven't integrated it. Okay. Unless, anyone listening has a big energy force, like a bunch of planets in the 7th house, you might feel more like your descendant if you've got, 2-3 planets in your 7th house. If not, the 7th house, say it's empty or just has one placement, it's an energy you're learning. It's an energy you're discovering. And so you feel like this is your glasses, you look at the world, you're going to dress this way. That other opposite energy, so Aquarius or, for me, Aries, is what fills your cup because you feel like you're missing it. You feel like you don't know this. And in our reading, you spoke about how Aquarius provokes you. And exactly the same thing over here. My first mentor talked a lot about how that descendant energy always provokes because we feel like we're missing it, or it's something like a shadow within us where we don't want to see it. Mm-hmm. Right? We're like, I don't want to see it because I feel like I'm missing it. And when we realize it's actually like an integration point or self-care point or something we actually need to feel whole, right? The whole chart, we need to feel whole. We bring that opposite energy in and it's suddenly like, oh, I'm complete. Right? Yeah. Like I'm complete now because I have a balance rather than being completely in your rising sign. And if we think about the chart for a second, it's always within balance. Okay. So when we fall too heavily into an energy, we lose balance. So if you fall all the way into your rising sign and you're so Leo, then your balance is off. So does that make sense?
Absolutely. Yes. I'm like, yes, 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 and yes. I hope it makes sense for everyone listening. And if it doesn't, like, please book a reading with Vika because she will explain it in depth and obviously more personal to your chart. I do have to ask really quick, is the ascendant, is there something that's opposite? Like, is every ascendant that is a Libra, is their descendant in Aries, or is it like
always? Yeah.
Okay. So there always is like a crossover of like the polarity or whatever, you know what I mean? Like,
yeah. Okay. Yeah, the opposites of the energy. Yeah. So you'll always have like Aries, Libra, Taurus, Scorpio, Gemini, Sagittarius, Aquarius, Leo, Virgo, Pisces. So you'll always know if you have an opposing point, you're looking at that opposite energy.
Okay. So it's just interesting because my husband is an Aries, but we're both rising Leos. So that means we're both descendant Aquarius.
You are. And that's exactly what you both are seeking in the world. So you're trying to, find that, and you're both confirming the need for Leo through each other, and both still seeking the Aquarians. You have to kind of find it within each other in a different form.
Yeah. Oh, and it's funny, we've been told this, but like just our energy, like he's not as social as me at all, at all. But he's changing. Like he's definitely becoming more, I don't know. He's just really, really grounded into who he is. And when we do go to something social or we are in an environment where I guess we're seen together, people will be like, you're a power couple. Like people will look at us and now I realize why. And it's just that like Leo energy entered the house.
Yeah. It's magnetic.
It is. Yeah. But he's not a typical Aries because he's very quiet. He's mysterious. He's a man of a few words. Like you can see if you do this work and you're open to that, like you can see so much depth in his eyes, but not a lot of it is available. And that's interesting, like there's definitely people that they want to know more. So, or they'll just go stand by him. Like he's very grounded. So people will just want to be next to
him. That's so interesting.
And I won't shut the hell up usually. So.
Leos can't shut up. It's okay. Me either.
Yeah. Add champagne and gets really, yeah. Okay. I love that. And I had no idea that it's always like, it's easy to know someone's descendant. Because of that crossover. Can we dip into the North Node and South Node?
Oh my gosh, yes. Okay. Yes. Okay. So literally these points, I don't know if it's because that first book that was given to me was North Node, South Node, that they're so like special to me. But I would say the South Node specifically is probably one of my very favorite energies in the entire chart. Pluto, Lilith, South Node, they're all in like a battle for my favorite. So the thing about the North Node, and astrology is starting to talk much more about the North Node. It's becoming more common, and I love that. But there is often the forgetting of the opposite point. So again, there's an opposing point. Okay. So the North Node is one of the destiny points we work with. Okay. It's like, I like to describe it as, like a mountain you're climbing toward the top. Okay. And when you're moving toward your North Node, or you can think of it like your North Star, it should always be the star you're guided toward. When you're climbing toward it, life you're in alignment with you. Okay. You're in alignment with your soul contract to yourself. You're in alignment with, the path you chose. And so when you walk there, it's like doors open, things make more sense. You find more ease. Yes, there'll always be discomfort. There will always be pain points. There will always be shit hitting the fan, no matter where you go. But things seem to flow better because you're in natural soul alignment. Okay. And then the exact opposite. So just like the rising, we can look at just knowing your North Node, your South Node. Okay. So, for instance, my North Node is in Aquarius. So I know automatically Leo is the opposite energy. That's where I'm going to find my South Node. Your North Node is Gemini. We know automatically the opposite would be Sagittarius. So the South Node, the fun South Node that I love to work with, because South Node, okay, you've got to understand also the nodes are part of the moon. So they're very, very subconscious. They're they're also part of fate. Okay. They're fated energy. So when an astrologer is talking about like the nodes right now being in something, we're talking about fated energy, collective fate. This is your fate versus collective fate. So South Node is all your past mastery and it's also your past shit, right? Like it's like the subconscious you've been living in, the ego you've been living in. It's like, when you get so comfortable with something that you let things slide, you get into negative habits, you start operating from like, bad habits. Okay. So South Node, we can think of like that. It's like you've been doing this energy for so long, you're so comfortable in it, you've mastered it so intently that you fall into bad habits when you're not aware of it. Okay. So I love to look at the South Node when we're aware and we're conscious and we're using our energy consciously as mastery. Okay. It's like, yes, you are a master of this energy. Use it, manipulate it to do your work in this life with it, which is your North Node. Okay. We need our balancing points, as we talked about. We can't fall into one or the other. We need balance. So the South Node is like, we have to look at that energy force and say, am I operating in the low or am I operating in the high? And if I am operating in the low octave of the South Node, if I'm falling into the ego, into the comfort zone, a better shift, right? And that shift is looking to the opposite sign, right? Like, what do we need to do in order to get moving, and finding the dichotomy, the balance points of the two? So South Node's past mastery. It's also where you can get stuck, because what happens is, because it's so comfortable, we often walk toward our South Node. We're like, I know this path, it feels really good, I'm just going to go down this one. That path over there looks like it needs a machete and it looks like a lot of work, right? We don't know the path of our North Node. So it's much easier to go down the one we've already walked. And the invitation is, don't do that. Go get the machete and chop down the trees to get through to your North Node.
And so when you're talking about this, like, and I'm looking at my notes and just, is it lifelong? Like, is it lifelong?
Forever.
Okay.
And it might be, and we don't know the answer, but I have an inkling it's lives long.
Okay. So when I come in and I have a North Node in Gemini and a South Node in Sagittarius, and, I have my notes around that, I need to really be familiar with that Gemini energy when it comes to my life purpose, and kind of embody all the positives that the Gemini energy brings when I'm feeling stuck or depressed or low vibration or feeling like I don't belong here. Is that right?
It's like, yeah, I'm looking at like, with Sagittarius, like, are you getting stuck in old belief systems? Are you getting stuck in your rigid thinking? Are you, putting yourself into a box? Are you becoming too rigid with yourself? Mm-hmm. And always, knowing that if you're feeling stuck, if you're feeling rigid, if you're, believing there's one way, my way or the highway, that's very low Sagittarius energy. It's like, okay, Now, what is Gemini? Because that's your guiding force, right? Play, curiosity, expanding your mind in a more research focused way. It's communication, right? And what do we do when we get into dogmatic thinking? We stop communicating. We've seen that over the last 3 years more than ever. It's like when we get into rigid thinking, that is this way or the highway, we literally stop communicating and communicate. That's where we find the balance point. It's like, let's talk and be open.
Yes.
Right. So always looking to that higher energy and saying, okay, been there, been in the dogmatic thinking, been rigid, been, stuck in my belief systems. I'm going to put my map, my compass toward being curious, being open, being playful, communicating.
So fascinating, Vika. Okay. I wish that this was like a live. Any questions?
I know, right? It's like, there's so many questions.
There's so many. Okay. So we touched on Lilith. That's just fun. And that is, well, and okay. So we talked about the story of Lilith, but how does Lilith, and you may use me as an example, or yourself, but how does Lilith show up? Like, cause I thought it was just sexuality, but like, how does it show up in somebody's life?
Totally. And the sexuality is totally part of it, because it's like an area where we sexually stunt ourselves, because we get programmed from, early childhood to believe we are less than in this area. Okay. So Lilith is the path you're going to have to walk alone. Okay. She's the path you are going to provoke people on. Okay. So the house your Lilith is in is where you're going to provoke people. Okay. So yours is in the 7th house, in partnerships, in relationships, in business relationships, anything you're collaborating, you're going to provoke people. Mine's in my 2nd house, body. My physical body is going to provoke people. My use of my physical body is going to provoke people. What I eat is going to provoke people. My focus on health is going to provoke people. And that's so true for me. So that's like the arena of where you're going to provoke people, but that's also the arena where people are going to shut you down and say, play small, you're too much, you're taking up too much space. And the area you're going to learn, wow, I need to shut myself down. I need to be quieter. I need to be more behaved. I need to tuck my sexuality away. This might be an area where you completely begin to repress your sexuality, right? This could be an area where you are abused sexually, right? 2nd house could be physically. 7th house could be, the emotional violation of relationships, right? The emotional violation that happens in relationships, shutting down your sexuality. And then on another layer, it's like also where you find your equality in partnerships or lack thereof, right? It could be where you're showing a lack of equality in partnerships, and where you truly need to find your personal wild. Like, what does it mean to be this feral, wild soul, woman or man? Because men have their Lilith too, right? What does it mean to be wild and sensual and sexual and raw and alive? And all those things we're taught not to be, right? If we think about Lilith for a second, her story is so hidden in religion. It's not even in actual like texts. It's in these old Hebrew scripts that I can't remember the name of right now. And it's so buried that, most people in even the Jewish tradition where these scripts are buried, and Christianity don't know she exists because the story of her was buried, right? And we think about what she represents. Of course she was buried. That's all the energy we've been told not to be. And so we look at her in, the sign that she's represented in your chart and that house and say, this is everything I've been taught not to be, but really I truly rawly am.
Yeah.
And so she has her lows and her highs too, right? My Lilith is in Sagittarius and she can be a bit reckless. Okay. So for me, I have to watch out on how reckless I can be, how many risks I take. That's also a Leo thing. Like I have to watch myself, right? But also it is the area, where I seek freedom, I seek exploration, I seek expansion. And it all happens 2nd house within my body, within my use of my body, my physical expression, my sensuality, my pleasure, right? And so we get to use her energy to say, what was I taught not to be that feels actually really authentically true to be? And understand that the world is, you know, this incarnation is trying to teach us our lessons through our pain points.
Yeah. Oh, she just feels very unapologetic.
Mhm.
And I feel like everything she represents is the uprising that's happening right now. But it's
Yes.
curious because even as you say, like men have a Lilith, I feel like man or female, we all have feminine and masculine wounding.
Yeah.
And one thing that I've always had this belief around and had shame around is and I didn't share this with you. I hesitate sometimes because I'm like, who's going to hear this? But it is what it is. And it's going to land in the chart. It's going to make sense. But I used to think women that, not all, but women that claimed rape were lying. So I would
Mm.
think that there was this misuse of like, how far did you put yourself in a situation before then you acted like a victim? And I didn't like that. I felt that way because I was just like, where's that coming from? But I've also always felt that I was a man before I was a woman. And so I've almost had a masculine approach to that. Women are they're lying. That's, and then you're like, well, yeah, because whatever planet was where, you're like, you were a man in a past life. And so we
Mm.
have to remember, like, we have these past lives, but it doesn't mean we're always women. So we were men and we were women, and shit, as far as I know, I could have been an elephant. Like, I don't know. I just know it's all energy, and that we're vibrating together to heal a lot. And that is something that was a wound because I probably was a man that got falsely accused. And
Mm.
once I like lean into that, then it like clicks because you feel it in your body of like, oh my gosh, like there's just been this battle of men and women in misusing the energies and this war going on. And so now, as we are witnessing, the pendulum is swinging, and it's going to swing too far. It's going to go too
Yes.
far into the feminine energetics, and it's going to be really misused. And maybe we won't be alive for that. I don't know, but we're all playing a role.
I agree completely. And witnessing, you saying the pendulum going too far, you can already see it, right? With the amount of like beta energy that's being encouraged in men, and like the amount of men that can no longer protect their women. Not only just because like they don't have the physical capacity, but because to stand up and protect someone now is, toxic masculinity. So it is very, very interesting. And Lilith men, I love to talk about Lilith men because they come out as these energy forces that are meant to call in the Lilith woman, the wild woman, right? And you can see them, they're always the men that bring these, marry or end up with these women that are just absolute forces. And then I'll look at their chart and be like, of course, right? Because the Lilith in their chart is playing into them, like really calling in that wild woman, supporting that wild woman, being a divine male that encourages sexuality and freedom and the raw, wild expression of just being feminine. And then you can see some men that are absolutely terrified of Lilith, right? They're terrified of that energy. And that shows up in their charts too, as like this rejection of it's too much, right? All the things we're taught not to be. So it's fascinating.
It is. I have like kind of I'm looking up this guy, Awakened. Chris Bale Awakened. Like, if you guys have any interest, like the way he writes about the feminine energetics and honoring the body and how like we are the sex, and like he's just, his voice, like I don't know if you follow him or know who he is, but you would completely vibe with him. And I find him fascinating. I've asked him twice to come on the podcast. I hope someday he'll say yes. But he just writes these things that just hit my heart. And then there's also an account, I think it's like Sacred Masculinity, but it's these like men, like these like warrior looking dudes doing breath work and crying and being around a bonfire.
Yes.
And it really makes me realize like the higher power is not like men were equally victimized of the dominant patriarchy. And I just, I know that I could be easily attacked for that, but think about it. And being somebody that was raised with brothers and having two sons, you see it. You see that they're cornered. Like, don't cry, don't have too many emotions, like act this way, be a man. And that's just as toxic.
I 100% agree, right? It's like, and now we're getting into all of that. Plus, don't fight, don't be strong, like don't protect, or and
Only
not
if you're a woman, though. It's
right?
like we're
Like,
telling women to do it.
yes, but men can't do it. Men
Mhm.
can't stand up. Men can't be, all these things. And I completely agree. Is like, um, that's the toxic masculinity, right? Is that they were taught to not, stand in their truth and not feel and
Mhm.
express and be human. And I have a lovely friend who he works a lot with this, right? He has this group called the Black Sheep Mastermind, and it's all about, working with this energy. And he works deeply with bringing men back into their emotions, into the breath work, the same thing, where he's just like working with coming back to the center, the healed masculine, and just watching him and his discovery of coming back to healing all those things you just spoke about. I just sit there in awe, and I'm just
Yeah.
like, wow, they have these circles, these groups, they scream, they hug, they cut wood. And I'm just like, yeah.
Yeah. And
Yeah.
I'll flip it too. There's times where I have to catch myself where, like, I've seen men like full blown in emotional release just through an Instagram video or something. And depending on what I'm seeing, I will find it unattractive and stop
Mm.
myself. And like, holy crap, that's part of the wound, is like, I am still attracted to the warrior. But
Mhm.
that means that then they don't get to be, we'll never meet at that level of intimacy I crave.
Yeah.
It's, you know what I mean? So we like have to watch ourselves, because it's like we want, we think we want certain things, but then when it shows up in really truly an authentic way, not a Hallmark or Hollywood way, we're like, ooh, that doesn't feel safe.
Totally. Totally. Like the question is, oh, can he protect me now?
Yes. Yeah. If
Can
he's
he,
too
can he provide
emotional,
for me? Yeah,
will I have to be codependent and manage his emotions too? Because I don't know
exactly.
how to manage my own, because I wasn't taught.
Exactly. And like the thoughts of, okay, now I can't mother this man.
Yeah, oh gosh, that's a
That will
whole
come
nother
up, right?
conversation.
That's a whole other podcast. So it's huge, right? And when we as women don't feel safe, we stop expressing ourselves. And it is truly this healing that when we come back to that balance point, we cannot exist, keep like when we keep swinging the pendulum back and forth,
Mhm.
we can't live there, right? It's got to be in the middle. And I don't know if on earth it ever will be.
Oh, maybe. I think it's got to swing both ways and then come back and settle in. This just occurred to me because, like, I guess I thought Lilith was like so much sexual energy. And I'm like, kind of like, I wanted to be like, am I going to get there? Like, what's going to, like, am I going to ever be like comfortable to be in like lingerie like you? And, and I'm more of like, give me a cotton like nightgown and put me in a castle. Like, I have this like old fashioned sexuality where it's
Mhm.
like maideny. I don't even know.
I
But
feel like that's very Pisces of you.
oh my gosh, but what I just realized, and a lot of people don't know this, but it's my life and I have no shame, is Lilith is in the house of relationships in Aquarius, so changing the narrative. And I have two sons by two different dads, and I am with a third father that is like amazing. And I met when I was 14, and I recognize his soul and have always been in love with him, but it just wasn't our time. But the first man that I was with and loved, and I love everyone that I'm with. I cannot unlove people. Like, I don't like their behavior. We break up, we stay friends, we love each other. And the first gentleman that I was with is my current husband's brother. And so we all get along. We're always together. My ex-husband is with a beautiful, amazing woman that I'm really good friends with. But when any of the boys have birthdays or sports or whatever, it's like me and three men over the years. And, my ex-husband has been with his partner for a long time now. And so she's like part of our family, but everyone has always been so confused by that, because it's like, how do you have like three men? Like, they all are so kind to you. Like, they would do anything for me. And I'm like, because I forgave them in their darkness. Like I had the radical responsibility that we had something to do and it was a short period of time and like, it's over, but we have children. And so both of my boys have like 3 dads. And that is Aquarian energy because it didn't follow the system and it works for us, like truly works for us.
And like community, like community parenting is what I'm trying to say here.
Yes.
Right. Like Aquarius is the community. It takes a village. That's Aquarius. It takes a village. It takes the community. And it's very outside of the box, outside of the norm. So yeah. 100%.
And I love it. Like, so, my first partner, who is my husband's younger brother, he's a Gemini and he's amazing. He's like the kid. He's like, let's go to the arcade. Let's spend some money. Let's go get some food. So fun. Like his energy makes me so happy when he's here. Like immediately it's like, I like slammed a Red Bull. I love it when it comes over. And then my ex-husband, who I was with for 10 years, he is also an Aries, but he's very like the fun guy. Like he's so fun, so amazingly fun. Like you just can't have as much fun as you have with this person. And then my husband is like the wise, quiet, like protector. Like he's the dad. And so my children get 3 facets of like 3 awesome men to help them understand who they are. But like, it's just, I'm so thankful. Like, I'm so thankful that they get that in their lives.
That is beautiful. Like what a gift.
And now I'm like, okay, Aquarius in the relationship, my Lilith. So I'm not going to ever be like a freak in the sheets. Like,
you could be, you might not be like, and that's the thing, right? It's like, we have to, I feel like sometimes there's an inkling within us of something we want to do that's not right for us. But then there's also an inkling of something we are becoming. So it's like, it's flushing out. Is it something you're becoming? Is it something, you haven't healed, haven't unlocked, haven't found the key for yet? Or is it a fantasy that doesn't feel right for you? Because there's so many things in my life right now where I'm like, I know how exactly I want my life to look. And I'll see it and I'm like, is that actually something I want? Or was that something plugged into me? Right? Is that something I think I should want? And getting very clear on like, okay, I actually want this, for me, it's right now I'm working with like more independence, my Aries descendant, more, more me time, more going to the coffee shops alone, more taking walks alone, drives alone, traveling alone, all these things alone is coming up for me where I'm like, okay, what does that look like? And which of it is real? Which of it is actually what would feel good for me versus what of it is like not mine or not even like, it's an expectation or, a programmed thought.
Yeah. I mean, I just want, we're never going to stop talking. What just came through though, about sexuality, as you were talking, is a programmed thought that I think a lot of women struggle with. And I struggled with it and hid it for a very long time until I started talking about it. And then through this work, a lot of women have been attracted to me that have had the same, it's an energy. I recognize it right away. And it is, in the bedroom, I'm always present from the lens of the male. And that could be one, we saw that I was a male in a past life, but if he's fulfilled, I'm fulfilled. If he's turned on, I'm turned on. And it really robs us women of a full-blown experience because we're putting ourselves, we're out of body, we're not in the body. And so that I've healed a little bit and it's been like completely life-changing, but a lot of my life I was in disassociation. Like I really was truly like, if I'm what you want me to be and you have pleasure, then I'm like, I'm good. I'm great. And that's not what it's supposed to be.
No. And that's such a like Libra feeling energy, 7th house feeling energy of like the self-sacrifice, right? For another, also very Leo, like putting on a show, right? Having to put on a show for your partner, rather than the embodied experience of the act. And I think all women, if I meet one that doesn't feel like this, like I'll be astounded, but I think all of us do that. We put on the show. How does my body look? How does, like, it's almost like it's that sense of, right? Like, it's like, how do I look to them? How do I feel to them? Are they enjoying the experience? What the heck? What about you?
Yeah.
Are you here? Are you
Yeah.
enjoying the experience? Because I know
Yes.
I'm guilty of like, I'm not even there. I'm in some other realm.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Right. And the disassociation takes us out of our pleasure, which is so what we're learning right now with the Taurus North Node. It's like coming back into our bodies, back into our pleasure, our sensuality. And then doing that with another person is like, well, can we be present with ourselves? Are you putting on a show for yourself? Like, are you able to, self pleasure without that show? Or are you looking away from that? Are you able to experience your own body? It just makes me think of even the fact that like, I didn't know what my own vagina looked like for most of my life. Right. Until someone was like, put a damn mirror down there. And I was like, that's
Like
what it
in
looks
fried
like.
green tomatoes. Do you remember in fried green tomatoes? I always think about that, Kathy Bates.
Yeah. Right. And who, like, we're not told, we don't know what it
No,
looks like down
with
there. All we
shame,
know is these
100%
diagrams.
shame. Like there's,
Shame.
oh, that.
Totally. And then you look and you're like, that's what she looks like. Right. Like that's what my partner's seeing.
I know.
And
And
it
then
completely changes things.
it does. Yeah, it completely does. I feel like, do you see? Like, I feel like I'm all red now. I'm like,
Do they make you blush?
I hope my children aren't going to listen to this. I don't think that they do.
Mom.
I know, right? But we had to. I mean, this is what you're about. Like when people start following you, you are a very sexual being. And like you mentioned earlier, like you will trigger people by the way what you do with your body, and you have zero shame with showing your body. And I'm inspired by that. And I think it's art. Like I love beauty, and you are beautiful. And so there's
Thank
nothing
you.
that triggers me except just appreciation and curiosity of would I ever do that?
Totally. And it's funny because it is my art, right? Like for me, it's not a sexual thing. Of course, there's sexuality to it, but when I'm doing boudoir or modeling in that world, like it's not a sexual experience at all. It's actually this liberation experience, liberating my body, freeing my body, freeing all the like shame that I had for so long. And now I have no shame around my body. I love my body. But, going through high school, I used to write in my journal every single day that I wanted to be anorexic the next day. I hope to God I don't eat tomorrow. I hope to God I can get through the day without eating so that I can be skinny. Right. And there was so much shame, and it bled into a relationship with, rejecting food that came later, and that healing I had to do. So this, for me, my exploration of that Lilith energy, that Venus Pluto energy,
Yes.
is my liberation.
Yeah.
And through that, I get to liberate all other women that feel that level of shame and hurt and hate toward our bodies because, the world told us it should look a certain way, or our ass should pop a certain way, or like all this bullshit that isn't real. It lies. Like,
Yeah.
how many men
The
do I
first
talk
person,
to?
yeah, I was
Right?
gonna say
They
the first
want
person that
shapely
calls,
women.
yep,
Yep.
yep.
They
And the
they
first
want
person that
hips.
calls bullshit is a guy. A guy is like, I don't
100%.
want that. I
No.
don't.
And that was like the eye opener. Was like every guy I talked to in high school would be like, what are you talking? Like we want hips and ass, and like
Yes.
we want something to grab onto, while I'm, in my adolescent mind being like, I want to be rail thin.
Well, and it's even getting, it's like women, we have a sickness. Like we have a level of body dysmorphia. And my husband told me not too long ago, he's like, will you please not put stuff in your lips? And I was like, what? And he's like, he's just noticing like more and more people having what he calls like the Simpson lips. And
Oh
I'm like,
yeah, it's
oh my God,
huge.
it's really bugging him. And I was like, I mean, I have pretty decent lips. So if that's your request, I'm absolutely okay with it. But yeah, he's just like, no, thank you. Like,
No, I know. That's the thing. It's wild to watch. Like it's us. It's our own internal expectations and media bias.
Yeah. And some of
Yeah,
it's for us. I'm not trying to take away what women like to
100%.
do for themselves. I mean, I like to feel pretty and do red lipstick and dress a certain way. And I do have a husband that actually doesn't really care for lipstick, but I still do it because it's for me. So, I mean,
Yep.
I'm not trying to shame anyone that does anything to their face, because that is not where I'm going. I'm just, it
No.
seems like males aren't as on board as we may think they are with
I agree.
ourselves.
I agree completely, and 100%. You do you. Just make sure it's for you.
Yes, for you.
Mhm.
Okay, girl, I love talking.
I know.
This is really fun. I can't believe I'm all like flush. How funny.
I embarrassed you.
I did. I exposed myself. I want to talk just two more quick things, and we can take as much time as you want, but I wanted to let you know, I'd love to talk about the Chiron wound. Is that fair? Did I say it that way? And then just like give people a very simplistic knowledge around the full moon and the new moon, because I get asked that a lot. And I've told people the full moon is about releasing what you don't want, and the new moon is about calling in what you do want. But I know it's bigger than that. So if you could just educate them a little bit more than I can. And then I learned so much about the Chiron wound. So
Okay. So Chiron, my dear Chiron, it is one of my absolute favorite energies as well. Because, and I'll give you guys like a little background of the myth of Chiron too, because for anyone who's wanting to dive into astrology and you're feeling fascinated, I highly suggest learning the myths about each sign or planet, because it will help you understand what that energy actually does or feels like in the chart. Okay. They are related for a reason. So Chiron is this centaur, and typically in Greek mythology, the centaurs are these like drunken, crazy, wild energy Sagittarius, that they just cause a ruckus. Okay. But Chiron, he's born of, I can't even remember who, but of a god and something. He's born and he's adopted by, I believe, Apollo. Don't quote me on that. But he's adopted by a god and not raised by centaurs. Okay. So he's raised by a god, and he's raised to be brilliant, and he gets the finest education, and he becomes this very, very powerful healer. Okay. He's the ultimate like healer, doctor, medicator. Like he can look at any wound, any ailment, any illness, and he can heal it. It's like you go to Chiron if you're sick, if you're wounded, that's his job. He has many, many other things he does too, but like this is his main thing, is like this healer energy. And then the story goes that he's with Hercules. They're, doing some things, a whole bunch of other centaurs come, things get rough, and he gets pierced through, I don't even know. He gets pierced essentially with this arrow that has the blood of the Hydra on it. And the blood of the Hydra is it's poisonous to mortals. It can't poison a god, but it essentially causes eternal pain forever. Okay. So Chiron is now in this excruciating pain that he can't die, but he can't end. Okay. So he has to stay in pain forever, as the story goes. And this one who is supposed to be able to heal everything can't heal himself. He can heal everyone but himself. Okay. So I want you to remember that as a key. Chiron can heal everyone but himself. And essentially the story ends that, he ends up giving up his life for another myth that plays into it. And Zeus puts him into the stars as a constellation and ends his suffering. Okay. So he's technically not dead, but he's not alive. So he's just up in the constellations as the constellation Chiron, and it's actually as the constellation Sagittarius. And he's just there, not in pain. So when we think about Chiron, we have to understand like this is the wounded healer within you. So your Chiron is the wound you feel so deeply all your life, and the energy of what you heal in the world, what you want to heal in the world, what you want no one to ever feel, because you feel it so deeply. So example, mine's in Cancer, and I am like the ultimate nurturer. I want everyone to feel seen, to feel loved, to feel safe, to feel like just cozy. I would take everyone in and like give them a family if I could. And just like, I mother people hard. I don't mean to, but I am like the ultimate, like I will make you feel like you have a mother. If you don't have a mother, I'll be the mother. And that's my energy, right? And understanding your Chiron is like one of your soul healers, in that it's not right now. Okay. You're not gonna just heal your Chiron today. It's like forever, like the North Node, right? It's an internal process of this life, many lives previous, many lives forward, in my humble opinion, that we're always working on. You don't just get finished with it. You just keep working on understanding what is the wound, the sign, where is the wound, the house, and how can you bring that magic into healing the world? Does that make sense?
Yes. 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 And
Yeah.
it feels so good to know. And
Mhm.
mine was in Gemini, and it was about my voice, opening up my voice, imposter syndrome, feeling like, being rejected if I have something to say. And that is so what I'm able to see in people and want to, like, I want people to anchor into the truth within, connect with the spirit within, and authentically show up as themselves, because I 100% know what it's like to not have a voice, not be anchored into my own truth, because I was fearful probably at one point that I was going to die,
Mhm.
whether it be taking my own life or just from a childhood experience. I don't know, but so I relate to that, and I really encourage people to look it up. And I think you can even just Google it if you just want to know, like, you put your birth chart in and get
Mhm.
your Chiron, and then explore your Chiron in blank. It's really helpful.
Yeah, it's one of the most powerful energies. And with the Chiron, I'm always finding new layers of my Chiron. I know it's in Cancer, and I'm like, yep, it's the mother wound, ultimate mother wound, got it, family wound, yep. And every, I don't know, 6 months, I find a new layer of it where I'm like, oh my God, it's linked to my money. Oh my God, it's linked to this. And every new layer I find, I'm like, you little bitch. I love it so much, but it's sneaky where, um, just don't think that it's going to end with that one where you're like, oh, found it, that's what it
Yeah.
is. It's like, it is this onion of an energy where you're just peeling all the layers forever, and there's no core. Maybe there is eventually, but it's beautiful to find a new layer and a new layer, and every time you peel back a new layer of your Chiron, you're like, wow, like
Mhm.
that is soul healing right there.
Yeah. So for you, is it that you take care of everyone else, but have a hard time really nourishing yourself?
100%, like to the point where, so ultimate mother wound, my mother is a wonderful human. We went through a big point in my life where she wasn't there. She didn't cook for us. She didn't, all she did essentially was put a roof over our heads, which I appreciate. And we've done a lot of our healing, but I didn't know how to cook for myself. I didn't know how to feed myself. I didn't know how to provide for myself. I never felt safe. I never felt protected. I never felt like I had a solid place to be and
Yeah.
heal and nest. And I still don't feel like that. And then, bringing it into its conjunct my Jupiter, and it makes it even bigger. And it also brings in levels of faith, of conversations around, my family. Family was always a wound for me. There was always pain to the point where I wouldn't go home for holidays because it wasn't a safe place.
Mhm.
It didn't make me feel safe. And so you just keep peeling back
Yeah.
these layers of really what it came down to was safety,
I'm sure.
never feeling safe.
Yeah. I was standing in my kitchen last night, and I kid you not, I thought to myself, I wonder if there's a cooking wound, because I have it. Like, I cannot
It's totally
do it.
Cancer and Taurus.
Oh my gosh. Like, and I am a Cancer, so I'm like, why am I broke? Like, why am I
Right.
broken? But I
Right.
can do it for a party. Like, I can do it
Mm.
for an event or a holiday. Like, if there's a
Mhm.
bunch of people coming over, I can make a beautiful dinner, and I actually can do it quite well. Like, I can cook, but it's the labor and the investment in the way that I want to cook, which would probably be like organic or farm to table, and it would take all day. And so that
Mhm.
quick dinner on a Tuesday or Thursday night feels so agitating that I
Yeah.
just stare at my kitchen.
Right. And it's like that layer, and we talked about this in your reading, of wanting to be provided for, right? Wanting to
Yeah.
be taken care of.
Yeah. I'm like, I
And
want to
there's
hire a chef. That's what I'm working for.
100%. And there's absolutely nothing wrong with that, right? It's your wound and my wound is it's not bad to be taken care of. It's not, it's, you know, wanting to be mothered is not wrong. Yes, there's a reparenting that needs to happen. It doesn't need to happen in a specific way.
Mhm.
right? For me, it actually is learning to cook because that actually is healing for me. For you, that doesn't feel like the same situation, right? So for you owning that, yeah, you want to be fed. Yes,
I want
that's
to be fed.
your reparenting, right? That's
I'm gonna
your energy.
manifest that. I want to be served. I
Yeah.
want to hire a chef.
And like we own it, right? And so like I know a lot of people that actually have cooks. You
Yeah.
know, the person comes to their house and stocks up their fridge and they're like, this is something I'm willing to invest in because it makes me feel good and supported and whole and actually gives me more space to do the things I want to do. And I'm like, good for you.
Yeah.
Like, own that, right? If you can allot that money, prioritize, move around, shift, sacrifice maybe other things to have that cook, own it. That's yours,
I
right?
remember the first time, well, my husband had a house cleaner and I was just never in a situation or knew anyone that did. It just was the time of my life and the bracket of income I had. But I was so uncomfortable to tell people that we had somebody clean our house. Like it really felt like I didn't know how to be in that space of I have a house cleaner. Like it felt
Mhm.
horrible. It felt like I had slaves. That's what it felt like. Like I was like, I will never let anyone know. But like we're paying them. They
Mm.
love it. They love us. And
Literally, that's their life. That's like their
yes.
lifeblood. You're paying them a good wage.
Yeah.
They a lot of people like I'm one of those weirdos that enjoys cleaning. I love it. I freaking love cleaning. So like where do we get off deciding that someone's work is less than, right?
Yeah.
Just
Yeah.
because it's not our life path.
Yeah.
Mhm.
All right. I'm sure that everyone has learned a lot, and I would love for just like just a little bit because I love your take on the
The
full moon.
moon, yeah.
It's
Okay.
I love the moon.
So, yes, love the moon. I actually love talking about the moon, and I'm going to rattle you and your listeners. Okay. So, a lot of people do teach that the full moon is for releasing, and I want everyone to try out letting go of that today. Okay.
Okay.
So, so I'm going to give you my analogy of the moon in the way that I've been taught to shift you today. So I want you guys to think about the moon like a chalice, like an empty cup. Okay, it's this empty cup. Make it whatever color you want. Mine's like silver. I don't know, like the moon. And the new moon, the cup is empty. Okay, it is empty and ready to be filled. Okay, so this is why when we come to the new moon, we get to write our intentions because the cup is empty. It has no energy in it. Okay, that's also why on the new moon we're more tired, we're more inward, we're more yin. There's no energy. The moon has poured everything out. So we got this empty chalice and we're like, yay, I get to fill it up with my intentions. Then we spend 2 weeks filling it up. Okay. Like we can think of it like planting the seeds, like literally taking care of the land. If you were seeds, you'd be taking care of them, watering them, making sure the soil's happening, the seedlings are coming up, everything's, growing. So the chalice is filling up. Okay. It's filling up. Then we hit the full moon. The chalice is full. Okay. This is the harvest. So if you want to think of it as like the seedlings are in it, they're full. You're about to take the corn off or whatever it is, pick the apples. The chalice is full. It's full of all the stuff you filled it with. You're going to take a minute here, celebrate your work. Wow, you filled that thing up. You filled it up. And if you pour it out on a full moon, you're just pouring out all the energy you just worked for. So take a minute before you release to celebrate the fact that you did all that work. You put all that intention in, you cultivated it, and now you have this full, beautiful cup. Then after the full moon, this is the waning period. That's when the cup automatically begins to empty. Okay. So that's when we release. It's like after the full moon, you've celebrated, you've gotten very clear, even taking a time on the full moon to say, all right, I filled this up. What do I want to keep? And what do I want to release? Right. Because like there's going to be good stuff in the cup and bad stuff in the cup because we're human. So taking a moment, say, okay, I cultivated all of this. I'm going to keep this. And over the next 2 weeks with this waning period where I get to release and shed, I'm going to let go of all of this. This doesn't feel good. This list over here. And then we spend that waning period before the next new moon letting go. So you're pouring the cup out. Okay. Over time, you're letting it go. You're letting it go. You get to the dark moon or the balsamic moon, and you just toss that cup out. empty it, shed it, completely release. That's why with my membership, it's on the dark moon, because we shed the karma then. Then you hit your next full or new moon, the cup's empty again. And then we do it all over again. So in the teaching that I was first taught was like, if you get to the peak of the full moon and you just empty it out, you've just poured out all the energy.
Yeah.
What a waste, right? When we have a period to do that anyway. So get to that peak, celebrate, look at it, look at your harvest, say, these apples are good, these apples are shit, I'm going to toss these apples out, right? The seconds and the apples with wormholes, and then you got your harvest, celebrate, right? And then we can also look at the full moon as like the dichotomy of two signs, right? It's the polarity again that we talked about at the beginning of the episode. Okay, so if the moon is full in one sign, that means that the opposite sign is, it's a push-pull energy, right? So we have the moon over in one sign, the sun over in another sign. The sun is shining its light on the moon fully. That's why it's lit up. So we have to look at both energies. So Aries full moon coming up, the reason that it is being illuminated is because the sun in Libra is shining its light on the moon, illuminating a whole conversation around Aries and Libra. So you find the dichotomy, the balance point. What do we need to look at regards to self, Aries, and others, Libra? Yeah.
I just love, I'm kind of blown away a little bit, because that resonates with me. Because one, I'm very familiar with celebratory energy. In full moons, I am very energized, and I'm very in a place of like, I want to celebrate. You know what I mean? Like sometimes I forget to do the journal stuff until after. And
I'm the same.
I realize like,
I'm busy.
I'll journal what I want. My intention is my intention. But the new moon, I have more journal entries on new moons in pajamas with candles. And I'm all about like the colored pens and so that makes sense. It's like, yeah, I'm I'm a Cancer, so I'm ruled by moon, but I don't know if everyone feels this way. But full moons, I'm like, let's party.
Let's party. Let's go. Right. Like the energy's full. I'm the same, where like when the full moon comes around, I didn't even realize it was going to be a full moon. And like the next, I didn't even know minute, because when the energy starts to fill, I get more distracted. I become more busy, right? My energy is more full. And so I'll literally be like, oh my God, it's the full moon. What? Oh, okay. And then, I half the time don't even reflect on them sometimes, because I'm just so in the energy. Yes. I'm in the gratitude. I'm celebrating. But the new moon, the dark moon, I'm present. I'm there because I feel the draw. I feel the slowing down. I go, whew, I don't have much to give right now. Right. So same as you, I'm in pajamas. I'm like, let's reflect on this one.
Beautiful. A lot of attention currently around follow your moon chart. And so, or the moon chart, or just where the moon is. And I witnessed somebody that I am mentoring and how affected she is, and how it really does mirror where the moon is. And so I told her to start to follow it. And she was like, it changes every 2 days. Like, I thought it was like there for like a season. I'm like, no. And so we have to just remember how cyclical we are, and how we are going to have, every day is different, and leaning into where the moon is could tell you a lot.
Oh my gosh. There are days where I am absolutely buzzing, and I'm like, is the moon in Gemini today? And I'll look, and yep, the moon's in Gemini. Or like there'll be days where I'm like, I have nothing to give right now, and I'm just hungry, and I'm going to be in this bed, and I'll look, and of course the moon's in Taurus. Like it never shocks me when I look, because we are so in tune with it. And if we can like really tap into those cycles, we can live better, right? Like, it's like planning for your own personal moon cycle, like your period to come, and saying, okay, I know it's coming for me. It always comes on the Pisces or the Aries moon, always, for the last like 6 months. So I'm like, when I'm planning out my schedule, I'm like, I am not doing anything. I'm not working on those days. I'm not taking calls on those days. And you know, we can do that literally with the moon. It's like, okay, I know I'm feeling this way on Gemini moons. Okay, maybe I need to communicate and socialize and, talk to people and go out on those days. I know I'm going to feel like, very inward on the Cancer moon. I'm not going to plan much then. I'm going to be watching Netflix snuggled up with like my blankets and my dog. That's what I'm going to be doing. Right.
And a Leo, when the moon's in Leo, it's like,
Partying.
go dancing.
I know. Leo, I have a Leo moon, so it's my moon birthday. And every time it's a Leo moon, I'm just like ready to go. Like it is the best time of the month.
For sure. I have to agree with that. I am, photo shoot ready.
Yeah. Every time I'm just like, oh, and I feel so good. Now, even if I don't even know it's the Leo moon, I'll be like, I feel really good. And then I'll look and I'm like, oh, that's why.
Yeah. I think the app I have is called Moon. Let me look.
I have one. I think it's called Moon Cycles or something like that. Moon something. It's great.
Mine's called The Moon.
Oh, the moon. Okay.
So The Moon or Moon Cycles. It really is pretty fascinating once you start tracking it. But Vika, I just want to thank you so much for coming on today. I adore you. I know everyone's listening is going to adore you. Please tell people how they can find you and what offers you have that are current right now.
Yeah. Thank you. Because this conversation was so juicy and delicious and I loved it.
So good. I'm
so good.
Like, I could be red. I'm still flushed.
I love it.
Like, what happened? Like, I'm honestly like, my body had a reaction talking about that stuff.
I love it. It's just
I exposed about my personal life. I did tell about my personal life. I've never done that about like the men that I adore. Anyway, yeah. I'm very red for those.
I love it. Just own it. It's the provoking, right? So, okay, working with me, you can find me Instagram, TikTok, Pinterest, all the things is all Vika Bradford. Like that's it. Simple. My website, vikabradford.com. That's the easiest way to find me. Working with me right now. My membership's probably the easiest way to start and the most cost-effective way to start. And in there we do a dark moon ritual every single month where we do a lot of karmic clearing. I'm going to bring you into shedding, releasing. I do what I call shamanic cosmic journeys, where I'm basically going to like take you into a hypnosis journey and do, it's energy work, it's Reiki. There's so much potency in that. So every month we have that call. Every month I do shamanic journeys on top of that. And then I've just started actually a series within the membership called Metamorphosis, which is about basically like breaking your personal matrix and, shattering the illusions and programs we put on ourselves so that you can actually just like be you and live authentically. What a concept, right? But we have to shatter so much to do that. So there are going to be conversations that are, again, very provoking, very against societal norms. And, we're going to talk about things that, tend to bring stuff up. So that is open. And my readings it'll be November when you guys listen to this, are open too. So I have my past life and purpose reading, as well as my wild woman reading too, where we dive into all the Lilith stuff in that one, all like your Venetian divine feminine energy, as well as cosmic coaching calls, where we basically just get nitty gritty for 2 hours. You bring your shit to the table and we just go. So those are the easiest ways to start with me.
Beautiful. I love it. And I highly, highly, highly recommend everyone to do a past life and purpose reading. All the other things are amazing. I haven't witnessed them firsthand, but as you can tell, because of Genius, I do want to just tell you guys it's Vika. Vika. Bradford is Bradford. So Vika Bradford. Beautiful Canadian, sexy goddess woman. Thank you for coming on today. I appreciate you so much. And I just look forward to deepening our relationship and possibly working together in the future. I know that we have a lot ahead of us.
We do. Thank you so much for having me on, sharing this space with me. It was truly my honor.
You are so welcome.